Bienvenue no Chime, what's up everyone, and welcome to episode C, or 1 of the Tlawilli podcast, where we have meaningful conversations with people from all walks of life on how we can be a light in our various communities and tribes. My name is Mokwawzoma, and I will be your host. Today, we're going to be talking about whether or not two people can be on opposite sides of an argument, political issue, religious, ideological, social, all the O's, and still be friends. And really exploring like whether that, like on the surface, we know that to be true. But the deeper question is like, can you even go down to like even fundamental beliefs? And can you, like I said, be on opposite sides of these things and still be friends? Spoiler alert, the answer is yes. But we'll get into that later. So we see a lot of, especially over the past 8 to 16 years, we've been seeing a lot of, now I'm speaking in, election seasons for the Americans here, but we see a lot of, if you vote this way, you're a blank, or a vote for this person is a vote against blank, or if you voted for blank, then just delete me now, and stuff like that. And it's two things. One, it's toxic. Two, it's just unnecessary 9 times out of 10. And we'll talk about exceptions a little bit, because I think there are exceptions to be made. For when, you should probably distance yourself with someone, depending on certain things. But like I said, 9 times out of 10, it's honestly unnecessary. And so to try and help disprove the idea that they aren't going to be open to be friends with me, I'm having a good friend of mine join me today that disagrees with a good amount of things with me. And it's not, the reason we're still friends is not because we agree on more than we disagree on. It's not because the things that we disagree on are not important to us, but it's because there's still a mutual respect that happens there. And we're gonna talk more about that. And so today my guest is going to be, he's a content creator. He paints tabletop game miniatures. He does it extremely well, I might add. He's going to argue with me, but I don't care. He's wrong. He is a product photographer. He's a musician. He is a father. He is a husband. He's a Canadian. And he used to build guitars, which is super dope. So with all of that, I would like you all to welcome my good friend, Jarrid Holscher. Woo! I need to add some like clapping noises there.
Yeah. I expect applause anytime I enter a room.
as you should.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for having me. As your token Canadian friend, it seems like the right choice for your first episode.
Exactly, because we all know how Canadians are. So,
hey.
Oh, perfect. Here, hold up. There we go. We're good. Okay. I was just checking levels and all that good stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, so how are you doing, man?
I'm pretty dang good. I mean, we did get like a foot of snow over the last 24 hours, which makes me less good because, heavy slush to shovel isn't, my most favorite thing. Even though I'm in Canada, I do complain about the snow. Otherwise, I'm great. That's everyone's happy and healthy, and so it's all good.
Awesome. That's a funny thing. Like being in California, it's like snow. Like we always refer to it as the snow, and it's something. It's a specific thing that you go to. Like
yes,
it's not. It's not just like it's rain. It's like no, we are going to the snow. It's like where are you going?
It's the attraction.
I don't know. There's snow there. We're going to the snow.
It's an attraction. It's like going to Disneyland.
Exactly. It's just such a like out of this world thing to us. The weather has been like down here pretty marvelous, stupendously stupid, I'll say.
Okay.
Like even just like on Easter, or Resurrection Sunday, if you prefer that. I do. But so on Sunday, last Sunday, yeah, last Sunday. My gosh, my brain's not working anymore. Sunday, the weather was just so dang all over the place. Like it would be like sunny 1 minute, and then like 2 minutes later, it's super cold and I need to put on my jacket. And then 5 minutes later, it's like burning again, so I need to take it off.
What is
Yesterday,
super cold?
huh?
What is super cold?
Okay, so I'm gonna speak in Fahrenheit. I
That's
trust that
fine.
you're
Yeah.
good enough at math because you're Canadian. Okay, for a Californian like me, super cold is anything below 60.
Okay. So see, like we were on
Oh,
today's Friday, so like
okay. Sorry, I'll let
maybe
you
on
finish.
what? On
Oh,
Wednesday
oh,
or maybe Tuesday, it was 65 here, which is like pretty warm for the beginning of April. And then now we're like below freezing again and a foot of snow.
I,
Welcome to the foothills of the Canadian Rockies.
also, define freezing for us Californians that we use that term loosely.
So, I mean, like below freezing is in the point at which water freezes, which is 0 degrees Celsius. So, what is that, like 25?
Yeah, that's a
So,
nope.
we went from 65 to like 20 in 24 hours and got a foot of snow.
Yeah, nope. So the thing that I got distracted by a second ago was I don't know how to turn it off yet. Maybe you can help me later, but I didn't realize this was going to happen in here as well. But it happens during all of my virtual lessons. Is depending on a hand gesture, a little symbol's gonna.
Oh,
So like, wait for it.
nice.
Boom.
Yeah.
This one's pretty fun. Let's see. So I have yet to find out how to turn it off, but it's
But do you want to? Because that's pretty fun.
the really frustrating part is whenever I'm in the middle of like a guitar lesson, if I'm like finger picking or something, my hand is in this position.
Yeah.
And so it constantly thinks I'm
You're
giving
giving
a thumbs up,
Awesome.
and that
Yeah.
happens. If you're only listening and not watching, you're not gonna get this. But so if you are on Spotify or YouTube Music, there is still a video option to toggle on, so you'll see what we're talking about. But let's see. So sorry, I'm trying to jump through here. So for some of the people watching and listening will already know who you are, especially if you've been following my Frowns Like Eagle account since the Quartermaster Draven days.
The Wayback Bus.
Yeah. You guys will have probably known Jarrid not as Caffeinated Miniatures, but as Caffeinated Pirate. So like I said, some of our viewers are going to know who you are, but for those of you guys who don't, or for those that don't, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm just a giant nerd and basically a nerd professionally. So I paint, little guys that are involved in tabletop games and make content, I guess. And like now I'm directing things, which is wild.
That's dope.
That's yeah, I don't know. That's me. I'm
In
mediocre
a
at a bunch of
nutshell,
things, and I'm mediocre at things and not afraid to try. So
I think that's a pretty good way to live.
I mean, I've massively failed at things before. You live, so I'm not afraid to, fail again, I guess.
So some people might be asking, all right, Mokwawzoma, why are you even having this conversation anyway? On like, can people disagree and still be friends? Because for some, like it might seem obvious, and the answer should be obvious. But like I said earlier, we do see a ton. Like, if I had a dime for every time I saw if you voted for this person, you're blank, right? Or if you're going to vote for this person, just delete me while you're ahead, and all that kind of stuff, right? And I heard someone saying this thing a little while ago, or actually no, it was just yesterday. It was on a completely different subject matter, but the guy basically was saying how the doers are usually not super loud because they're just out there doing, and the complainers are the loudest. And while the doers are over there not trying to convince anyone, all the complainers are out there convincing everyone that they're right. And so the people who are still being chill about, like, still just being friends with people who disagree with them, they're not out there shouting it from the rooftops. But the people who are super like, no, if you believe this, then you hate such and such, and I can't tolerate that, And so the reason we're having this conversation is to kind of push back against that, and show people, like, yes, there is in fact a better way to go about doing this. And it doesn't mean that we're not opinionated. It doesn't mean that we don't have firm stances on things. It doesn't mean that we just become a doormat and just let people run all over us. But what it does mean is that we're willing to hear people out, that we're willing to listen with empathy. Right. So yeah, that's really the reason why we're having this conversation in the first place. And we are going to get into, we're going to mention some pretty hot button topics. What we're not going to do is have some live form debate. And if that's what you're looking for, then I'm just going to disappoint you right now. That's not what's going to happen. This is not going to be, Mokwawzoma destroys Jarrid with facts and logic. That's not what this is going to turn into. I probably wouldn't be able to do much destroying anyway.
I mean, I don't have any logic.
So maybe I could.
I'm just your token Canadian friend.
Yeah. That's the real reason I brought you on. But so like I said, that's not that. What it's not going to turn into is some kind of live debate. And how can I learn how to debate people politely? And I think that kind of content would be valuable, but that's not what we're doing. What we're also not going to do is, when we do bring up these hot button topics, what we're not going to do is say who stands where on what subject. That doesn't mean I'm never going to throw out there where I stand on certain things.
It's probably pretty obvious anyways.
Yeah, some of the things are going to be pretty obvious. Some people might be surprised, particularly the areas that because like I said earlier, there are areas that we do agree on. And there are also micro subjects within, maybe there's a broad subject that we disagree on, but there are micro things within that we do agree on.
Yeah, there's lots of nuance that, exactly. I mean, man, if someone saw our long diatribe text conversations,
right.
be like,
people are gonna be like,
what are these? Who are these two?
Right. Will you guys just make it easy for me to find out which one of you guys I hate? It's no, because we're gonna keep flipping.
Short answer, it's both.
Yes. Just hate both of us. And so a big reason why I am not going to, why we're not going to get into who stands where and stuff like that is I also want to be courteous of Jarrid's audience, and to not alienate any of his viewers and stuff like that. Like I said, doesn't mean I'm never gonna, in future episodes or even on social media and stuff like that, address things. Doesn't mean that he's never going to. But that's not what we're doing here, because that's not the purpose of today's conversation. The point of this is not for you to find out which one of us you align yourself more with. The point of it is to say it shouldn't matter in order for you to respect someone. So, I want to start with a quote that I had seen. Have you seen the Fallout show trailers?
Yeah.
Okay. First off, all right, we're both nerds. How stoked are you for that show?
So like all of everything I've seen brings the hype level up super high. However, I have been disappointed in other shows recently. So, I'm trying to temper that down.
That's always the scary part, especially whenever you're doing any kind of adaptation of something that already exists.
Totally. Now, I think because we're in it's an entire new genre, not genre, but like it's an entirely new format. I think they have a little more, hopefully a little more live, area to work in, right? Because certainly they're not so tied down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely, the hype factor is high.
Yeah. Something that I think what they're doing is similar to what Sony did with their movie adaptation of Uncharted, which is kind of creating an amalgamation of the different stories.
Yeah.
Something that I had seen a lot of people were kind of nervous about was like, okay, is this going to break lore? Is this, for those of you guys who don't know, the Fallout series, the video games are they're role-playing games. And you make all of your own decisions. And so my ending can look very different than Jarrid's ending.
Yeah. And you can play through many times and get all sorts of different endings.
You could play it dozens of times and get to different endings with different ways of getting to that ending.
Yeah.
Not all the same people are going to be alive or dead by the time you get to the end. Yeah. You can massacre whole towns if you want. Also, quick disclaimer for the algorithm. Anything that we talk about here is for educational purposes only, not telling people what they should and should not think or do. Sorry, I said the word massacre, and so I was like, I need to put this disclaimer out now for the.
That's fair. That's fair.
For the almighty algorithm. I don't want to get canceled on my first episode.
I mean, that would be you should get a world record for that then, right?
Right. It's a pretty solid origin story.
Yeah.
But anyway, looking at the trailer, I promise we're getting somewhere with this, guys. We're still in our, nerd out portion here. But so you know how in the Uncharted movie, they kind of just took certain elements of each story. It wasn't a direct one-to-one comparison with any one game. And it was just a brand new story. And so people,
which is a smart way to do it. It's very clever.
100%.
Yeah.
You're always going to disappoint people, but I feel like that way you're probably going to disappoint less.
Yeah.
Cause you're not saying this is this exact game. No, it's not. It's a whole new thing. It's based on this. And people were concerned with the Fallout trailers because there was the Brotherhood of Steel airship, which we know was only on the East Coast. But this takes place in the LA area. So how the heck did they get there? And then there was a place that looked like a city. I want to say it's from Fallout 3 called Megaton. I haven't played 3 or New Vegas.
Neither have I.
Gotcha. So yeah, there's a city called Megaton that looks like that junk city in the trailers.
Yeah.
And so people were like, that's literally Megaton. What the heck? But based on the more recent trailer, it really looks like they're just taking elements of, they're taking the airship element from Fallout 4, saying, hey, these guys also have an airship, but it's a different name. Hey, there's this junk city, but it's called something else. Have you played Fallout 4?
Yeah.
Okay. So Hancock.
Yeah.
The Wild Wild West dude, I think, is supposed to be there, this new version of Hancock.
Yeah, totally.
Cause he literally we see it in the trailers. The dude was an actor and now he's just taking on this new persona in this apocalypse. And I think it's awesome. When you see the main protagonist shoot the chems at him, like the
Yeah.
syringe dart. And he, what did he say? He's like, miss, that is a small drop in a large bucket of drugs. And if you guys have played Fallout 4, you know, like that is Hancock to the T. Like that's literally in his origin story. Is the whole reason he's a ghoul is he did one really gnarly drug.
Everything. Yeah.
he did all the things.
Yeah.
But anyway, so the quote though that I want to start this conversation with was
That's where we were.
yeah, was from the show or from the trailer. And it's from this guy named Maximus, who is he's a Brotherhood of Steel soldier, and I want to say it looks like he says this to the main protagonist, and he says, "Everyone wants to save the world, they just disagree on how." And I think if we start this conversation with that, and if we really approach our conversations with people that we disagree with and stuff like that, I think we would end up with like a lot healthier dialogue than is common, you know? Yeah. Because the fact is, I say this all the time, like most people, I'm not going to say all, but most people, especially just regular dudes like you and me, not politicians and stuff like that. I have a healthy distrust of politicians. But most people just like you and me, voters, most of us just want to make our countries better places to live. Yeah. And we just heavily disagree on how we get there. Yeah. So the first thing that I'd kind of like to get into, or first, let me pause. I've been rambling a lot. Is there anything you want to tag on there?
No, I think that's exactly right. Like empathetic listening, right?
Yeah.
Is if you move into anything with just like a hint of empathy for some people, like just start with some. I think that's the place to go to start from. Yeah. You know, because even people that have like literally hate-filled positions can get there through love. And so if you just take an ounce of empathy and just like listen to that person, you don't like that doesn't mean you need to be friends with them.
Yeah.
It just means it leads to a much healthier discourse.
Yeah. And it also leads to a much healthier you. Like,
yeah, I mean, why do you want to be so like rage filled and angry at people all the time?
Right. And I think it's important to note that like being able to respect someone's like right to think what they think, or being able to respect that person doesn't inherently mean that you respect the ideology itself.
Yeah.
Or the actual opinion in and of itself. Like I can absolutely abhor what someone thinks and not hate them.
Yeah.
And so something that I want to kind of get into is, and I have like a few little like bullet points on like little micro topics we can hit on. And the first one of those is references. And so what the heck do I mean by that?
What are you referencing?
Right. What are you referring to, good sir? And so our brains work in references. And so what I mean by that is like, if I say In the End by Linkin Park.
Yeah.
Like, do you,
we all start crying.
Yes.
Why would you do that to me, Vince?
Like, I don't know about you, but I literally have a recollection of where I first heard that song.
Oh, 100%. I was in my very first car, which was a not great 1990 Honda Civic. And so like it just happened to have a CD player in it. So like that's the first place I heard that song, when my buddy was like, you need to listen to this.
Okay, you're making me feel a lot younger than I think I am. Or you're either changing my perception of you to a lot older than I thought you were.
A car doesn't have to be old to be a piece of junk.
No. My main thing is that you already owned a car the first time you heard the song.
Oh yeah, but like that
How old are you?
I
Do you
was like
mind me asking you that?
17. I'm 42.
I always think you're so much younger than you
No,
are.
it's
I
just
mean,
I know
you're
my
not
boyish good looks, Vince. I appreciate that,
like
but I am in fact old as heck.
okay.
I
By the way,
appreciate you calling me out.
right, age shaming you. No, because I was gonna say my first time hearing it was on the way from daycare to school, but
Like I said, I'm old.
oh, that is too funny. um, but yeah, so we instantly have this memory associated with a song, right? Um, if I say hot sauce, like maybe we get certain memories associated with that one, right?
Yeah, it's also just a staple to live by, but
Yes. When in doubt, add hot sauce.
yeah.
um, or and I'll get like a little bit deeper right now. If I say 9/11, like
Yeah.
like we have an instant like recollection of where we were, what we were doing, who we were with.
Yeah.
And so on a deeper level, if we talk about like certain subjects and stuff like that, it can bring back painful memories, for possibly, you know, or it can bring back, like if I say, I don't know, a certain president or something, maybe, right?
Yeah.
Um, that can it can spark extreme joy in someone or anger, sadness, like a broad variety um of references that our brain like makes connections to whenever when something gets brought up.
Well, yeah, like psychologically, if you attach emotion to a memory, you're more likely to maintain that, right?
Yeah,
And so that's, where a lot of arguments get emotional immediately is because that's your memories from whatever it is.
right. Your experience, and
Yeah.
so we get a lot of you can't tell me blah 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 because I lived through this.
Yeah.
And both of these things can be true, that our own experiences are valid, um and that our own experiences um like they happened and they were good or they were bad. It can also be true that it doesn't create an objective fact. Um,
No, 100%. So like also like your lived experience can be 100% opposite of my lived experience through a similar event. And that doesn't mean any one of them is right or wrong.
right.
Like my lived experience doesn't invalidate yours and vice versa.
Yeah. And so kind of where I'm getting at too is like, because our brains work in these references and things like that, and we we can tend to make judgments about a certain type of person, maybe people of a certain profession, people of certain demographics and stuff like that based on our lived experiences. And so something that we need to do, something that we should do, is be able to recognize that, like, yes, this experience is true. No, the emotions that came as a result of that are not invalid. But also, no, not everyone that fits within that same category is the same as that person or those people. Sorry, I clicked over to the wrong scene. And so I think that's extremely important for us to be able to do, because we see a ton of that, you know, from all sides of the political and socioeconomic spectrum, right?
Yeah.
You know, this whether positive or negative, right?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
that's the whole tribalism thing, right? Like, so because you vote, and voting is like a good one because that's a big tribe particularly for the US, because there's effectively two big tribes, right? You're red
Cough,
or you're
cough.
blue.
Colts.
Yeah. But it's like, so if you voted the same as me, then you're part of my tribe and you're right on everything.
You're inherently good.
Yeah. And voting like in the other tribe, you're inherently evil and bad and everything that's wrong with the world.
Yeah.
When in fact, everyone fits in the gray.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think within that gray, because like I think some people get turned off by that, by acknowledging nuance and the gray space, and what that is, what we're not saying when we say that is like, oh, that just means we just need to be moderate on everything, and you know, everything that everyone says is okay because that's just their opinion. Well, I guess perhaps I would say it's okay to say it, sure, like, but even that
but
has
if
its limits,
if
right?
you say
Like,
asinine things, then that may have repercussions in your life.
right, exactly. And so something worth recognizing too is when we say gray, we're not talking about one single shade of gray, right?
Yeah.
Like something can be gray, but this is a lot more white than it is gray, or you know what I mean? Or this thing is a lot more black than it is white, you know? And so like we tend to look at just like, you know, black, white, boom, good, bad.
Yeah.
But then when we go like this, right? And then we allow for those different shades of gray and stuff like that. And we can acknowledge like, okay, is this gray enough on this side of the spectrum that I can still like, you know, be cool over here? Or is this so gray over here that like, okay, I can see how you got there, right on, like do your thing, but I'm probably not going to have you over for dinner.
Yeah. But again, like, it's not that you necessarily disrespect, it's not that you necessarily don't respect someone.
Right. And I don't
even
think
if you
that
don't agree with their opinion.
Yeah. And like, I don't necessarily think that like you were saying, like, oh, you're just like the scum of the earth. And, you know, what would you say? You are everything that's
wrong with the world.
Yeah. And like, we can think that, so like I said, I don't think that most people are trying to destroy their country with the way that they vote, right? It's possible to think that, like, I can look at someone's views and say, like, hey, I think the way that you're voting will probably destroy your country. But that doesn't necessarily mean like, I think that is what you're actively trying to do.
Yeah.
You know, you know, that doesn't mean always that like, oh, well, if the intentions are good, then like, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Like, no, like results matter.
Yeah. Actions matter a lot more than the intent.
Right. What's that phrase? The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah. I was going to quote that earlier. Like, literally.
And so like, yeah, we really like that nuance is important to acknowledge. I remember even recently, I was like, now I need to start just knowing when to step away, and I'll get into that in a little bit.
If this is, I think you're referring to something that if what I think you're referring to is what you're actually referring to, then yeah, you need to learn to step away. But go ahead.
I'm gonna step away.
Yeah.
that was a little too confrontational for me.
Well, because you brought it up to me.
Right.
We chatted about this, if this is what you're talking about.
Yeah. Was it the comment section?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it was, I don't even think I was the initial one to comment. I think I replied to someone else's comment in like a comment section on like a political post. And I'm going to start with this. The post was about something that Jarrid and I stand in like on opposite sides on. For the most part, I think that there's some aspects of that conversation that we could probably say like, yeah, you know what, like this is right. The broader conversation is probably where I would say we kind of stand on opposite sides of it.
Yep.
And so like someone had commented something and I responded to him. And ultimately the guy was like accusing me of like being pro segregation, which is wild. And pro discrimination. Which again, like you know me, and like you'd be like, all right, dude's tripping. Anyone who has ever sat inside a sermon of mine knows that like, you know, I will tell people until I'm blue in the face. Like if you use like any kind of like, or for those guys who don't know, I'm a youth minister. Like I lead the youth ministry at my church. And I have said many, many times over the years, like, you know, any kind of slur that's like, or any kind of slur at all, like that doesn't fly here. Like keep your mouth shut. You know, that kind of stuff doesn't fly here. Bullying, nah, like we're not doing that here. And so when this guy was telling me that like you're for discrimination, I'm like, what are you freaking talking about, man? And so what I'm getting to though is like there was a lot more nuance involved in that than I think the other guy was willing to acknowledge. And based on what I could see, I think the dude was pretty young, and like younger than me. Like I would imagine early 20s. That's not me saying like, oh, if you're young, you're dumb, and like you heard it here.
You heard it here.
You don't know anything about the world. Like, no, that's stupid. So that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying he was very zealous.
Yes.
Which is not inherently a bad thing. It's also not always inherently a good thing.
No, this person was very stubborn.
Yeah. And as we mentioned earlier, I think we mentioned it earlier. At the very least, we mentioned it in our private conversation beforehand. Yeah. There's a difference between being firm and being stubborn. Like in the conversation that we were having, I am extremely firm on the position I took. But I'm willing to hear out, and I was willing to hear out what the guy was saying.
And incidentally, in that particular conversation, like where you were at, like your stance, your firm stance wasn't even like there was nothing wrong with that stance. Like even though like in that broader conversation, you and I disagree like 100% on some of it, like, you know, on that broader conversation, we disagree on that. But like, your stance in that, like in what was being discussed, I don't even think was wrong. Like it was completely logical. And like we had some references towards like that we gave each other that would, you know, actually validate your stance in that. But it's like that's someone being very stubborn and unable to take on any information.
Yeah. And like I'll get like I'll get a little moderately specific, but also pretty vague about like what the conversation was about. People might be able to piece things together a little bit. But it was the real, like the micro topic that was kind of being discussed was really whether or not a business has a right to like refuse service to someone. And like we both are business owners. You used to do product photography. And like I teach music lessons. And so that was really like, that was kind of like the micro topic. Right. And so like that was really where I was having the disagreement on with this gentleman online was like whether or not business owners can choose with whom they want to do business.
Yeah.
And like I said, like the broader subject, Jarrid and I are kind of standing like, we'll explain it this way. If there was a protest and a counter protest, we'd probably be standing on opposite sides of the fence.
Yeah.
But once the protest was over, we'd also probably go get tacos down the street together.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Um, and it's because both of us are able to acknowledge, like, one, like I said, the other person is not trying to just destroy the country and things like that. And we're also both able to acknowledge that there's not an ounce of hate in the other person.
Yeah,
Um, and that word gets thrown out really loosely, I feel like.
super loose. Yeah.
And I think there is a really low bar set for what bigotry is, or hatred and things like that. Um, and re, go for it, go pop off.
Oh man, the thumbs up pops up when you say hatred.
No. Oh gosh, that's no.
Speaking of getting canceled,
So, disclaimer for anyone who's like just jumped in now. Um, that's not me intentionally doing that. There are just things that just pop up on the screen. There's another one, because of the device that I'm on. Oh, that is horrendous. I didn't even see that.
oh
Um,
man, I thought that's what caused you pause there. It's like, wow, beautiful timing.
right. But so what I was getting at, that, like I said, is like people set a really low bar for what this is or what that is and stuff like
Yeah.
that, you know? Um, shoot, like,
So we were
do,
literally talking about this, like with people like readily being called racist,
yeah,
where their stance isn't necessarily racist.
right.
But
Like,
like I was talking about a personal, like someone within my personal life that I just say is everythingist because of the things that they legitimately say and using racial slurs and very, very overtly sexist statements. That's like that is something that I can't abide by.
yeah,
Like that is something that would be the line that I would draw, because like that is literal hate that I don't need in my life. And so that's the sort of thing that I can be like, I don't I don't need to associate with you anymore.
right. And like, and it's one of those things where, um, like, the way you even said it earlier, like there are people who arrive at certain positions via like even like a place of love or, um I think more often than not, especially when it comes to like a lot of the like hateful ideas and stuff like that, whether racist, sexist, whatever, um a lot of times it comes from a place of wanting to belong somewhere
Yep.
and wanting to be needed.
Yeah.
It's like today, like, we're both well aware that in kind of like the mainstream world, like corporate world, mainstream media, entertainment, all the things, like we know the types of people that are demonized now. That's straight, white, um, Christian men. Like that's like the unholy, how would I say trinity, but for quadraty. I don't know. And it's like those are like the perfect recipe for like a villain today, and each of those things tend to be, um like kind of like villainized, and like if you are this thing, you're inherently bad. And so, and stuff like that is what gives people like Andrew Tate a platform
Yeah,
where,
but also the thing is that it's a weird cycle, right? It's a circle because that gives him that platform because a bunch of young white men feel that way.
right,
And so but then him having a platform gives anyone, like it gives a lot of people like, well, this look at that he's literally the devil and he is all of those things, which makes anyone that's one of those things also the devil.
Right. So it pushes both.
Yeah, it causes the extreme.
Yeah, it's just
Like,
like just ugly cycle where like the extreme opinion creates the opposite extreme.
yeah,
That further feeds the first extreme and it just keeps on going, right?
yeah,
Because a lot of people are saying like, oh, well, like men are predators, right? And men are at the top of the hierarchy, right? The social hierarchy and things like that. And so then when someone comes in and says like, not only are you not a villain, but you are necessary. And I would say like, yes, men are necessary. Every human being is
is necessary.
necessary, you know? But so when you get someone that comes in and says, not only are you not a villain, but like you should be on top. And when you get someone that comes in and says that, it
Yeah,
resonates with you because you're used to everybody else saying that, like you should not be around. Um, Here, let me find my. I'm trying to.
oh no, you lost your notes already.
I know that they ran away. Trying to bring some some structure, but it's okay though. Like because it's still one of the things
Hang
where
on,
like
hang on. You brought me on and you're thinking that you're gonna have structure. Oh boy.
that was the first problem. Um, but yeah, it's like there's something that I was going to mention earlier, and it just completely left me. um, that's okay. So yeah, being okay with the nuance. There's a phrase that I like to use, and it's that the truth often lies in the nuance. Um,
Yeah.
more often than not, neither extreme is like 100% correct. You know. Um, so we talked about firmness versus stubbornness. Let's talk a little bit about like
So it's
being
like I
mis
like this idea of having like, do you have like loose ideas strongly held or strong ideas loosely held, right?
right.
It's like I can have a very strong opinion. I mean, our like our text conversations are filled with very strong opinions from both of us. But that doesn't like you have this strong opinion that you're willing to take on new information.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like as a matter of fact earlier like and this isn't even something I was necessarily going to write down but like generalities, right? And like I guess we kind of brought it up like in terms of like our biases and that kind of thing. But like just was it yesterday? It was like yesterday or the day before we were having a conversation and like you had made like a pretty like you painted something with like a pretty broad brush.
Yeah.
Um well not pretty broad, like very like
It was a broad brush. Yeah.
yeah. Um and and I kind of like and I even said I was like I'm going to offer some light pushback. And uh he had said something about he made it like a broad statement about like a certain politician um that I'm gonna be honest like the person I'm not even personally like the biggest fan of um but so he like made a pretty like broad statement and I was like I'm gonna push back a little bit and I was like because of this policy that he signed in, you know. And you were like effectively, you know what, yeah, you're right. um I still hold my broader opinion on this thing, and so do I. um, but like the pushback that I had, and I even told him like I can kind of be like the um generalization police a lot, and I really try to avoid making statements like every blank person does
Yeah. Yeah.
this, right?
So, and it's one of those things too, where it's like, yeah, I do my best to do the same thing, and so it was like a great reminder that you just said this broad generalization that where your core argument may have validity, using these generalizations actually wipes out any validity because you can find if you can find even one thing that discredits that, it discredits
the
the
whole,
whole
yeah,
argument.
it all falls apart.
Yeah.
And so a way that we can, it's funny, I guess in a sense right now we are giving like debate advice, but, and that's okay.
Yeah, but we're not like literally debating something.
Right. I mean, yeah, yes, we are. You're wrong.
Yeah, that's true. I often am, but you're wrong too, so that's okay.
That was like the most Canadian response to that ever.
I
But you're
didn't
wrong
say
too.
thank you.
But that's okay.
Sorry.
Oh god. um but yeah, it's when we avoid making those broad strokes, it protects your argument. Um because like we said, the moment that you disprove that with just one example of the contrary of your every blank statement, or this person always, you know what I mean, things like that,
Yeah.
the whole thing falls apart. And now, like, anything you say can to a degree kind of just be like chucked out.
Yeah. Whereas, like, I could have literally said that this person often appears to whatever, right?
Yeah,
Like, act in their own interests solely. And it's like, okay, like, that can be completely true
right.
because, like, the the objectivity would be that, yes, this person
Often.
often does they often appears to act in their own interest only, right? So it's like,
Hmm. And what, something that's also important there is, like, statements like that also offer empathy to the subject of that conversation,
yeah,
to that person, where it's like, we can agree, not everyone, but, like, we can say, like, yeah, this person generally acts in their own self-interest, and this person has narcissistic tendencies.
yeah,
Um, but that also doesn't erase any good that the person has done. Um,
for sure.
so something that, like,
It also doesn't erase their ability to do something good in the future.
exactly, yeah. Like, you even said, like, in a conversation a while ago, like, policy wise, like, a lot of the stuff is kind of fair. Um, like, and like, that can be true, and it can also be true that, like, I think this person sucks as a human.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
both.
like this person, you could objectively be a horrible human, but also have done good things.
Right, absolutely. I remember hearing someone. She might be listening. But I remember someone saying something that, I am going to bring up a specific politician here from a country that is neither of ours, um, especially because we've never had conversations on this thing, so, like, it doesn't really matter
Yeah.
in this conversation. But, like, basically, a friend of mine had said, like, yeah, Putin's the goat because he, like, just, like, passed this law. Um, what that law was doesn't matter in this conversation. And so, like, my response was like, well, look at everything else he's done though. Like, that's pretty horrible. I'm like, yeah, but he's the goat because, like, this one thing that I like. And she didn't actually say that, because it's one thing that I like. That's me being
Yeah.
mean and mocking. um, but, like, I I think that's another weird thing that, like, we tend to do in modern politics is, some people are like, if you disagree on me with one thing, you're canceled. Um, like, you can know you you're you're a rhino, or you're a dino, um,
Yeah.
or, like, you're no longer one of us. You're just a fake. Just join the other side. Blah blah blah. It's like, yo, like, it should be possible for me to, like, still align myself over here and agree with one thing that someone else says, right? Like, no, I'll put it this way: if Hitler said he likes cheeseburgers, are cheeseburgers now wrong? Absolutely freaking not. Cheeseburgers are amazing.
Yeah. Cheeseburgers are dope. So
I don't know if they
that
existed
doesn't,
yet, but
don't know. And, maybe not in Germany. But that that doesn't matter, right? It's like, so someone can say something you agree with, like they can say a thing that you agree with. And
Mhm.
the reality is too is that like if you're in like politics as the prime example, like you should be working together
Yeah.
to create the best result rather than just saying like, no, everything you say is wrong. We're going to do everything that I do. It's like, it could be that again, like empathetic listening, like listening to what you say, because we can actually create something stronger
Yeah.
by bringing in some of, the opposite argument.
And that's really most I like of what modern politics has kind of turned into, you know, is that like I just need to prove that the other guys are horrible people.
Yeah.
Um and we even saw that it was weird that this isn't me making like any kind of like stating like an actual position here, but like something that we saw in like the last election cycle in the States is like, and it was just really strange to me was, um, a lot of the platform turned into like, don't vote for this person because you like him, vote for him because you don't like the other guy. And I'm like, that is like such a lousy official position to take. And the crazy part is it worked.
Yeah.
And like I said, that's not me like making any kind of statement about like whether that was right or wrong, whatever. Like for the sake of this conversation, that's neither here nor there. Um, but the fact that that kind of argument actually works, like, is kind of frightening.
Well, and policy can work that way too. So, like in my province, we've over the last basically 8 years, like it flip flopped drastically, from one sort of political party and leaning to the other and then back. And so, in that time frame, it's like they spend the first period of time just like basically rewriting everything that happened. So education is a good one. So there'd been, a bunch of educational things that had been put in place, and then they get flipped over. So they spend all this, like there was all of this research and money and time spent in creating a new curriculum. And then new people come in, step in, and like, no, all of that's wrong. So we're going to like start it over again and spend the next 4 years putting in money and research. And then another party comes in and does the same thing over.
Right.
And so it's like, if you have, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
If you have, an assortment of people that are researching and putting together a curriculum from all walks of life, that should be good,
And especially when it
regardless
comes
of
to
who's doing
something
it.
like education, is like you're
Yeah.
playing tug of war with people's kids at
Yeah.
that
And
point.
so now you've got like in certain things, like math, where you have this like 8-year cycle of like no curriculum updates at all, because you're fighting and saying no, that person's wrong
Right.
and what I say is right. It's like, but it's like our kids education. Just
Yeah.
bizarre. But it's like, so it's one of those things where it's like just assuming what everything the other person, the bad guy has done. And like we're talking about like political extremes here, right? So the bad guy has done this. Oh no, the other bad guy did this, so we need to wipe it all out and start over again. In the meantime, we've spent a whole lot of time not updating this and spending a whole pile of money
On getting
that,
nowhere.
yeah, on getting nowhere. It's like what are we doing? None of this is for the good of the people.
Right. Yeah.
All of this is for the good of your ego, effectively.
Right. Um
Thanks for attending my TED Talk.
vote for Jarrid. um Something that I think is really important too is like for us to be okay with being misunderstood and misrepresented, even to a degree, but not being okay with misrepresenting others.
Yeah.
And like, I'm a preacher at heart, so like I'm gonna frequently make references to scripture and stuff like that, and like I think of like turn the other cheek, um, and so like I mentioned earlier, what that doesn't mean is like we just become doormats and like let everyone just say whatever the crap they want to about us. Like, no, it can get to a point that it becomes slander and like,
Yeah.
like that is actually a crime in most places. But like, it's okay to be misunderstood. And so in that, like, for instance, that conversation that I had gotten into, like that we had talked about in that comment section. Right. And it's funny because like I read this passage like a couple days later or something like that. It might've been later. It might've been like a week or something. I don't know.
But your conversation did go on for a week, so
it didn't, guys. It was like 24 hours. And the funny part is like, so I'm going to bust myself out
that
really
person
quick.
kept coming back at you for several days.
And so there's that on the one hand. On the other hand too, though, like to bust myself out a little bit, I tried and like I ended it like 3 times. The third time it actually ended. And so again, both of these things can be true. On the one hand, I ended the conversation. I was like, hey, we're probably not going to agree and that's fine. And he came at me. And it was funny because it was like the same one-liner in like almost every comment too. Like,
yes. Yeah.
About like, we all know the types of people that support segregation and discrimination. I'm like, do you though?
It's clearly you don't.
Right. And so like he would say something like that with something else tagged onto it. And I kept on responding. Right. And so on the one hand, he didn't know when to leave well enough alone. On the other hand, I didn't know when to like be okay with the fact that this guy's going to misunderstand and misrepresent me.
Yeah.
And whatever it is, what it is. And it makes me think about like, there's this passage in scripture. Well, it's recorded 3 times. I want to say Matthew, Mark, and Luke all wrote about it. Matthew and Luke for sure. Whether it was John or Mark, that part I'm not sure. But there was an instance, it was like a few days before Jesus was betrayed and ultimately crucified. And he's in the temple and he's teaching. This is like the day after he was flipping tables flipping tables in the temple. The temple just got destroyed flat out. He did a little more than flip the temple. But so this is like the day after flipping tables and he's in like the temple teaching and like the religious leaders come by and they're like, hey, Jesus, like what gives you the right to even do what you're doing, man? And like, who gave you the authority to do these things? And his response to them was, he goes, I'll answer you if you answer my question. And he was like, was John's message, was John's baptism from God or was it from man? Like, and he asked them, like, did he get the authority from God or did he get the authority from man? And the religious leaders, like, they kind of talked amongst themselves and they were like, well, if we say that the authority came from God, then he's going to be able to tell us like, well, then why didn't you listen to him? But if we say that it's from man, the people are literally going to stone us because they believe that John was a prophet. And so their response to him was, I don't know. They knew what they actually believed, but they just didn't like John. Like they didn't like that John was influencing people away from them and thus removing their power. And so their answer was, I don't know. And so Jesus was like, all right, well, if you're not going to tell me where John got his authority from, I'm not going to tell you where I got mine from. Bye. And he just proceeds to keep teaching. Like he just turns around and he's like, whatever. And so like, what I really learned from that is like being like, they were choosing to misrepresent him and he felt no obligation to give them an answer. And so I think we need to be okay with like, if someone's coming at you in like a good faith, like like asking a question in good faith. Hey, why do you believe what you believe? Like, then okay, cool, I can engage in that conversation. But when someone's coming at you already straight out the gate saying you discriminate against people and you're a segregationist, like, he didn't exactly use those words. He said, I'm for segregation and discrimination. But when someone's coming at you like that, like, what I should have done is said, well, you've already made up your mind about me. So like, whatever I say is not going to matter. And so I should have just walked away from it in the first place, like as soon as I heard that. And so, like I said, I'm kind of outing myself
If
here.
only you had a friend saying something like that to you.
Yeah. I can't think of any.
Yeah.
Or if only I had a wife that over the years has constantly told me to stop commenting on things.
Or like you can comment, but then if this exact scenario comes up, it's like,
Right.
okay, I can be okay with this. Like there's no like, fulfilling discourse that's going to happen here.
Yeah.
No positive discourse at all. So I'm just okay. They're going to misrepresent me and you can be okay with
And
that.
yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because ultimately I'm never going to see this guy again in my life. And
No,
even
and
if
like it's like the chihuahua barking, right? Like they're loud and irritating, and they're probably irritating everyone. So like they can misrepresent you, and like it's not going to have any real bearing on your life.
right. Even if it is, and it's like, I said the thing about like, oh, it's someone I'm never going to see again. Like, even if it is someone that like you're real, like in close proximity to, like, and stuff like that. Like, really, I have family members, who like think certain things about me and like that I think a certain way and like whatever. Like, and like, I used to, I'm actually probably going to put like a solo episode out pretty soon, talking about like rejection. Cause that is like an internal thing that I've kind of like battled with like throughout my entire life. And it's influenced other areas of my life. And so there's been a certain element of like wanting to like be accepted, And I think the reason I kept coming back to that conversation is like, not because I wanted him to like hug me, like, and like accept me in that regard, but I wanted to be understood.
Yeah.
I wanted this person to like be able to look at me to a certain degree in the same way that you do, which is, hey, you two, like, if we were getting in a debate, it would be a 2-on-1, you two against me. Yeah. But when you look at me, that, like I said earlier, like there's not an ounce of hatred in there, and I was wanting to get that person to see me in that way.
Yeah.
When ultimately, like, it doesn't really matter.
And like that particular person was never going to see you in that way.
Right. And so kind of in that light, like let's talk about that from the other side now too, is misrepresenting people. And I think it's like, it's really important that we don't intentionally misrepresent others, even if it would further your own goals. Because it removes your integrity.
Yes.
I remember being at an event and, I'm going to say what the position was. A guy, mentioned some law that was like some bill that was being proposed in California, and he was like on stage, right? And he said, this bill that's being proposed would make it legal for adults to sleep with children. And I think he specifically said with 10-year-olds. And I did like a quick Google search and very quickly found out I still don't necessarily like, I'm not super on board with this thing, but that's not what it does. And it took less than 5 minutes for me to figure that out.
Yeah.
And like, yes, it makes the other people look a lot worse, which in turn makes you look a little bit better. But at what cost, though? Because now, like I said, now your integrity's out the window, and now I have a hard time accepting anything else you're going to have to say.
Yes.
Because what that law was really doing was giving a judge the authority on whether or not to put someone on like a registered offenders list. If I'm trying to think of exactly what it was. If the like age was, I want to say like 10 years or like within, might have been five or 10 years. And if it was like consensual. And the idea behind that is to protect, let's say there's and because we see stuff like this happen, 18-year-old kid has a 16-year-old girlfriend, and they engage in intimate activities.
Yep.
Parent finds them, presses charges, and now by law, this 18-year-old kid is now convicted of SA.
Yeah.
And so that's really what the law was trying to prevent. Do I necessarily agree with all the specifics on how they were handling it? Probably not. If I remember correctly, it was like the age range would only span 10 years, and the minor would have to be like 15 or older or something like that.
Yeah.
And so already the whole 10-year-old thing was already like
doesn't exist in that equation at all.
Right. Yeah. And so you like I said, I can still not super like all the specifics of it, but I can also not choose to misrepresent it. Like maybe it's possible that I would still like vote against it. It's possible that I would have voted for it. I haven't thought much about it, especially because that was years ago. Like, it doesn't really matter now. I don't even know what ended up happening with that. But the point is, I was willing to actually look and see like what does this law, like this bill, actually propose, and I remember like I used to post a lot more political stuff on my Facebook back in the day. I've resorted to now just putting it in my stories. And because it's like, if someone disagrees, they can have a private conversation with me now. But I remember like, I would get like friends from opposing sides, like just going at each other like a freaking battle royale. And people would accuse me of like trying to ride the fence and stuff like that. I'm like, no, like I have ears, man. Like, and I'm actually listening to what people are saying. And like, I have this amazing thing that I can do, which is critical thinking. Excuse me. And I can read like what is someone actually suggesting here, and we can make the arguments of like, okay, where are they trying to ultimately go with this? Like that's a discussion that can be had. But if you're saying this is what this law does, and it's not, then that's like literally the definition of misinformation.
Yeah, and you literally have this supercomputer in your pocket that can
Right.
pull up actual source, like primary source material, in seconds.
Yeah. And so, like I said, I think it's really important that we do our due diligence and actually understand what people think. And that's not going to happen, one, if we aren't willing to get out of our echo chambers and like look at sources written by people that we don't particularly like or agree with.
Yep.
And it's also not going to happen if we never have conversations with people on the other side of the aisle.
Yep.
I heard this good quote where someone said, I'm trying to remember exactly who it was. I think it was Justin Giboney. Um, he's a guy who created something called the AND campaign, um, which I'll probably talk about more on a later episode, maybe. It might have been this guy named Esau McCauley, who I believe is a pastor. But basically, what this guy said was something along the lines of your political opponents are not nearly as wicked as you think, and you're not nearly as righteous as you think. And it's super duper important for us to remember that. Like your candidate of choice is not the savior of your country. And the other guy is probably not the Antichrist.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I feel pretty good about kind of where we're leaving off there. I don't know if there's anything else you felt to tack on to the conversation before we kind of go into the next portion.
No, I was literally thinking that, something about he who has, who he is without sin can cast the first stone.
Right.
So there you go.
It's like, shoot, if you're going to choose to throw a stone, you should probably be yourself.
Yeah.
So we are going to get into something that I like to call the Sinister Six. And so what this is, it's going to be 6 rapid fire questions. I did not tell Jarrid what these questions are going to be ahead of time.
Sure didn't.
So he has no freaking idea where this is going. So just 6 super quick questions and answers. I really feel like I should get some good like Spider-Man music right here. For those of you guys who didn't catch the little Marvel reference in the title of this portion. So question number 1, favorite time of day?
Morning.
I've
been doing my 5 a.m. diaries, and that's
how long has it been
pretty good.
now?
So I just posted the 30th day.
Wow.
So when I was in Chicago, whatever, a week and a half ago, I didn't post anything for 5-6 days because I was in Chicago. But otherwise, it's it was the 30th episode. Morning.
I'm just gonna say right now, nope. Nope to getting up at 5, and
that's when you're going to bed.
I mean, that used to be for sure, especially pre-children. 100%. Give me a good video game and some chips. I will be there until the sun comes out and my wife is left for work. But all right. So number 2, what is your typical lunch?
More often than not, it's just egg whites, spinach, and a ludicrous amount of chili garlic sauce.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm digging the third part.
I mean, egg white and spinach is not is kind of boring. But you put chili garlic sauce on anything and it's good.
It's gourmet.
Yeah, that's magic. That's the magic sauce. So lunch is always super tiny. So it's I often have
kind of more of a pseudo snack.
Yeah, pretty much. It's at 2 in the afternoon or something. And often after I've taken the dog for an hour long walk. So it's just a small thing.
Nice. All right. Question number 3 of the Sinister Six. Guilty pleasure.
I mean, coffee. How guilty is that? Otherwise, it's anything with fat and salt.
Ooh. What's here's, I guess, bonus question. What would be your go-to, you think?
Honestly, it's basic Ripple chips. Otherwise, Cool Ranch, Doritos Cool Ranch.
Oh yeah, heck yeah.
Money.
You know what you gotta try is what I want to say, it's they're Doritos, but it's chili something Doritos.
Oh,
they're the purple bag.
Yeah, it was called something different because we bought some when we were in Chicago.
Is it Chili Ranch?
No. So in Canada, it's called Sweet Chili Heat, but it was something different. there, but it's like they taste
It
exactly
might
the
just be
same.
like sweet chili or something like that.
Yeah, it was something
So,
like that. Like, no,
bro,
those are money.
that with sour cream
Oh, tight.
is excellent, especially if you add some hot sauce. My go-to would be tapatio.
Yeah.
So good. All
I've
right.
got that. Like, it's always that and Cholula all the
Oh
time.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 4. Something you're hilariously bad at.
Hilariously bad at.
Like, what are you talking about? I'm perfect. I'm Canadian.
No, I mean that's like my my talent is being, kind of okay at everything. Uh Hilariously bad at. I don't even know, dude. Let's say volleyball. I kind of suck at volleyball. Like I played a lot of basketball, but
uh,
volleyball I suck at.
nice. Mine would probably be golf. I remember my brother took me to a driving range.
Yeah.
And it was literally like, you know how there's some things that you can suck at, but like it's still fun and it's funny because of how much you suck. Like
Yeah.
this was not one of those. This
That
was
was infuriating.
yes. This was one of those like this. I suck so bad at this. It's not even fun anymore.
It's not like something like bowling where everyone just like kind of fun sucks.
You just accept the fact that like no one's good at bowling except
Yeah.
professional bowlers.
Yeah.
um. Okay, number 5. Favorite holiday.
Oh shoot. Okay, so I don't really think it's a holiday, but like Halloween.
What do you mean you don't think it's really a holiday?
Like it's not like I don't even think it's
Like
like a day
celebrating
off.
something?
Yeah, yeah, it's like not even a day off of work for anybody, right? But like
Gotcha.
Halloween is my fave for sure. I mean, like I never dress in any colors. I'm like as close to
I'm right there
goth all
with
the
you.
time as I could be. Like Halloween is tight. It's the good stuff.
I feel like it's my thing. I feel like maybe the best way to describe like our way of dressing would be like dad goth.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, so I do wear a color. Like, I will wear olive drab. I have 2 items of clothing that are that color. Otherwise, every shirt I own is black, and it's like either black denim jeans or as dark blue as I can get.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's like that. Like I wanna be goth, but I also don't want to scare my kids' friends.
And also, like, goth is just more work than putting on black.
Get the white makeup and everything.
Yeah, like, it's more efficient to just put on black.
Right. It's like you can say you're a part of the club, but you're standing outside.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. And question number 6 of the Sinister 6. What would your job be if it wasn't content creation or photography?
Okay, so, I mean, I'd probably be doing the same thing I was doing before, where I was literally managing a pretty like, a big mid-size janitorial company, like commercial cleaning.
Interesting.
Yeah, so like, I don't remember like anywhere seasonally like 350 to 500 employees and like all through this province. So I was driving all the time, but that's what
Wow.
I was doing before.
Did you like own that business or
No, I just like
okay,
kind of fell
gotcha.
into managing it.
Nice.
Yeah, like that's deep lore, deep Jared lore.
Deep cuts with
Yeah,
Jarrid Holscher.
that's on vinyl.
Things you never knew about Jarrid. All right, so that about wraps everything up. Thank you so much for being here with me, man.
Thanks
Um,
for having me on.
I,
I didn't
I,
even flip a table.
I know, right? So we were talking about when I put like in my story, like featuring Jarrid or featuring caffeinated miniatures. He responded to me like featuring former friend Jarrid, and so we were talking about like how he's gonna flip a table and say like scream at me that we can't be friends anymore, and how that would actually make me look good. But yeah, seriously, thank you so much for being here with me, man. I couldn't think of a better first guest.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
because everything after this is going up. I'm glad I can be here.
Oh gosh, that's exactly what I meant.
It's
uh,
all uphill from here.
yep. um, so with all that, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave with people, whether
I thi
on the subject or not?
I mean, on the subject is just like listen with your heart, be kind over everything else, empathetic and kind. At
Yeah,
least, like, even if you don't agree with someone, then you haven't weakened yourself at all.
yeah. I I don't know if you ended up doing it, but I'm gonna throw out a recommendation for everyone: is go and listen to Arnold Schwarzenegger's speech that he put out. What is it? It was probably a week, maybe a little more, something like that. Extremely well crafted, extremely empathetic, but also extremely firm. I feel like it was the perfect way to address the thing that he was addressing.
Yeah.
Um, but so something that I guess one final thought, we briefly touched on it a little bit, is like, does it ever come to a point that we should distance ourselves from someone? Absolutely. Like, if it's one thing if like someone just votes a certain, like on a certain policy, right? Like, so let's say, oh, I'm rewinding a little bit, but I promise I'm going to land the plane. um, like, for instance, if someone thinks, "Hey, I think my country should have tighter borders," like, okay, like you can disagree with that and not necessarily think that person is a racist, or even a nationalist. Um, Now, if someone's like ideology gets to the point where it's like, I don't think you should exist because of who you are, like that is a very different story. Um, if you think that I don't have a right to exist, and like that kind of thing, like, okay, now we're passing from political differences to like this. All right, no, this is straight up hatred. Um, and yeah, I would say at that point, no, we cannot in fact be friends. Um, and you would be perfectly right to do so. Um, Sorry, that was just kind of a quick thought that I thought I'd put out there that I meant to say earlier and didn't get around to. Um, we'll call that my closing thought. But so before we wrap up, where can people find you on like social media, or where can people find like, the super cool things that you do?
I don't know. There's no super cool things anywhere.
He's
But
wrong.
all this stuff that I do is on,
You beat me to it.
YouTube and Instagram, just caffeinated miniatures.
Any underscore or anything in there?
No,
Beautiful.
all one word.
Super cool. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me, bro. I massively appreciate it. So with that, to everybody else, also thank you all, Tlaskamati, for joining us on episode C1 of the Tlawilli podcast. And last but not least, remember, Tlawilli, be the light. Timoitase.